Okay, so today we're going to be talking about writing and interpreting functions, and this is going to be our notes for writing and interpreting functions 1. All right, it says, what equation describes the four ordered pairs -1, -1, 0, 1, 2, 5, 3, 7? Now, a couple of ways you can do this. Probably the simplest way with multiple choice is to simply substitute your x and your y into the equations and see which ones are true. Okay, this could be a little tedious or laborious, but if you don't have a calculator, this is probably the simplest way to do it. So I'm just going to show you with using a. We have y equals 2x plus 1. So if we substitute -1 and -1 in for x and y, we get -1 equals 2 times -1 plus 1, which is -1 equals -2 plus 1, which is -1 equals -1. So that worked. Okay, but you know how they are with these multiple choice. They try and be tricky, so we have to check the next point. So y is 1, x is 0, so we set it up. 1 equals 2 times 0 plus 1, which is 1 equals 0 plus 1, and 1 equals 1. So that worked. Try the next one. 5 equals 2 times 2 plus 1. So 5 equals 4 plus 1. 5 equals 5. Okay, and then the last one, 7 equals 2 times 3 plus 1. 7 equals 6 plus 1. 7 equals 7. So that worked. Now, we got lucky because it was the first one. We might have had to do that for all of them. So if we're using substitution, it's not the most efficient way to do it. It's just the simpler way with when we're doing by hand. Okay, so I'd like to show you now how to do this with your calculator. Okay, I'm going to bring up my calculator here, and I have all these wonderful choices. If you'll recall, we had calculator, graph, geometry, and then spreadsheet. And I'm going to choose spreadsheet because that's most like a table. Okay, and so in my spreadsheet I have x's and y's that I want to use. So I'm going to just call this first column x. Oops. Don't want anything in that one. Better use my arrows instead of the enter. Okay, and then I put in all my x's, which were -1, 0, 2, and 3. Okay, and then in my B column, I want to put my y's. Okay, again, don't hit enter there. Just use your arrows to move. Okay, and those values were -1, 1, 5, and 7. Okay, so once we have our values in, now what do we do with those? We press the menu key. We choose 4 for statistics. We choose 1 for calculations, and then we have all of these lovely choices here. Okay, now usually we talk about lines, but if you look at your answer choices, one of them is not a line. It's got the little x squared on it, which means it could be quadratic. Okay, so we're going to choose 6 because 6 will give us the right stuff for either a line or a quadratic. So when this comes up, we want our x's to be in the x list, our y's to be in the y list, and that's really all we have to tell the calculator at that point, and we just say okay. Okay, so now back on our screen here we have this. So I'm going to just stretch that out just a little bit. Whoops. Okay. So I want to stretch this out just a bit, and you can do this on your calculator, but I just want you to see that there's more there. Okay, and it says ax squared plus bx plus c, and this is our a, b, and c. Okay, so I'm going to bring that back to my paper. Okay, so here on my paper, I'm going to just write ax squared plus bx plus c, and the values they gave us were 0, 2, 1. Okay, so if I put that together, that would be 0x squared plus 2x plus 1. 0x squared is simply 0, so I have 2x plus 1, which matches 2x plus 1. So when I have my calculator, it's going to be a little bit easier to get to these answers, right? Okay, let's try another one. Write what equation can be used to generate the values in the table. So again, I have x's and y's. So these are like-ordered pairs. So this is very much like the last problem. It's just given to us in a little different way. So I could go ahead and use substitution, but we already agreed that if I've got my calculator, that's going to be a little bit easier. So I'm going to just go straight to the calculator on this one. All right. Okay, so my calculator is still sitting with this stuff going on. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to press my home key. I'm going to choose spreadsheet again, and it opens up a new spreadsheet for me. Now I've got 1.1, 1.2. So my old one's still there, didn't go anywhere, but my new one's here. Okay, so again, I've got x's and I've got y's. So I'm going to type x here. Then come over to the B column and put my y's. Okay, then I'm going to come down to these, and I need to change them. Okay, so what were my values? Let's see, I had -2, -1, and 1. So -2, -1, and 1. Okay, so this last one I don't need anymore, so I'm just going to delete that. Okay, and then my y values were 3, 0, 0. So 3, 0, 0. And again, delete the last one. Okay, so again, I'll press menu, 4 for statistics, 1 for our stat calculations, and then I'm going to choose 6 because again I have an x squared. Okay, so I'm going to change to x, y, until it okay. Okay, and again it came up with this. So I know 1, 0, -1. So come back to my paper. It was 1, 0, and -1. And my equation, remember, was ax squared plus bx plus c. So 1x squared plus 0x plus -1 will simplify to simply x squared minus 1, which I have a match for j. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's try another one. We have several examples to get through. Which equation identifies the pattern shown in the table? All right, now, again, it's a table, and we have our equations, but you'll notice the equations themselves now are not in the y equals form. So when we go with our calculators, right, that's always going to give us that y equals form. So I think on this one, this might be a time when using our points and using some substitution would help us go a little bit faster. So now one thing I've noticed is the people who make these problems, they usually make the first and the last work. So I usually choose something from the middle, and I'm a sucker for the third line. So I'm going to use 7 and -3 in my problems. So for A, if I substitute 7 and -3, that's going to be 7 plus -3 is equal to 10 times 7. Okay, so 7 plus -3 is going to give me 4. 10 times 7 is going to give me 70, and so quickly I can see A is not going to work. Okay, so I try B. So again, 7 for x minus 2 times -3 for y equals 3 times 7, which is my x. So 7, and this would be plus 6. So 7 plus 6 is 13. 3 times 7 is 21. They are not equal, right? And they weren't equal up there either. Let's make sure we mark that. Don't want us to get confused later. All right, so y plus 10 equals x. So y is -3 plus 10 equals x. X is 7. 10 plus negative 3 is 7. And that works. Okay, so I've got it on the first one. I'm not going to call it my answer yet, but because I want to check out D, but I think we may have found a winner there. Okay, so negative 4 times x, which is 7, plus 4 times y, which is negative 3, equals negative 1. Okay, so negative 4 times 7 is negative 28. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 28 minus 12 is going to be negative 40. And I think we can quickly see that negative 40 does not equal negative 1, so it cannot be D. So we have found our answer is C. All right. I like that method. Okay, let's move on to number 4. The table shows Jason's weekly earnings during the last 4 weeks. Which of the following equations best describes the relationship between H, the number of hours Jason worked, and W, his weekly wage? Okay. Lots more words. We have H and W, but again, we have a table with our equations. And our equations are written in the W equals, and we could, I think you can, hopefully you can see that the W is kind of like Y, right? And so the H's over here are where we've had X in the past. Okay, and then up here on our table, X and Y were like that on our table. So it's just different variables, but still pretty much the same deal. So on this one, I would probably go back to my calculator and set up the spreadsheet table and do the calculation. Okay, so again, I'm going to go ahead and press home, choose my spreadsheet. Okay, this time I have H and W, so I'm just going to type H and W. Okay, and then my H's were 10, 8, 15, and 17. And then my Y's were 55, 44, 8250, and 9350. 55, 44, 8250. What was that other one again? 9350. Okay, 9350. So I have them input into my table. Again, menu, 4, 1, and I'm going to use 6. I'm going to select H for my X's. I'm going to select W for my Y's and tell it OK. And so I've got 0, 5.5, and 0. So I'm going to come back to my paper. And I have 0, 5.5, and 0. And that was my A, B, and C. So if I put that together into my AX squared plus BX plus C, which they told me was the formula they were using, I get 0x squared plus 5.5x plus 0, which, since zeros and zeros, that's really 5.5x. Okay, so 5.5x, remember our x was our h, so we're looking for 5.5h, and we find that here on choice J.